Do you want to stand and sit? Go ahead. You got it?
It's kind of ironic that I was asking for that prayer this morning. Last weekend, not ironic, that's not a good word, but last weekend, John and I got to go to a grandparenting conference at LaTourneau University. And I wasn't sure what we were going to, but it turned out it's called Grandparenting with Purpose was the name of it. And they had a lot of speakers from a lot of different organizations that are focused on grandparenting. And Brad mentioned that he had even taught a lesson on this a year or two ago, maybe before your grandchildren left the area. I think I probably missed that. That was in a season of great chaos when I wasn't here. But what I learned at the conference is that God does speak a lot to grandparenting in the Bible, but he doesn't use those words. He uses generations, and he uses verses like, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. Only be careful and watch yourselves closely so that you do not forget the things your eyes have seen or let them fade from your heart as long as you live. Teach them to your children and to their children after them. My son, give me your heart and let your eyes delight in my ways. So there was a man did a thesis, his doctorate thesis several years ago, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, and he did it on grandparenting. The only thesis they can find on record that someone did a thesis on grandparenting, and a man who used to be the head of Awanas, the national and international head of Awanas, caught this thesis and said, the thesis went through all the biblical references of grandparenting in the Bible, and I haven't read the thesis yet, but I have a book to read it. Anyway, a man named Jerry Fowler, who headed Awanas, decided that we needed to focus on grandparents, that it was that serious, that in taking the Israelites, for example, when they left Israel, they saw God, they knew God, they heard God. Joshua's generation, they knew about God, but it was kind of secondhand from their parents. They maybe saw a few things. But that third generation didn't know God. They didn't hear God, they didn't see God. And this is what happens in 3 generations. So we are tasked as grandparents to go to that third generation and teach them a faith, teach them our faith. But how do you do that? You're not the parent anymore. And so this conference gave us all kinds of creative ideas and encouragement and hope and challenge of how to do it better. And I just left there all on fire. I was sharing with the ladies at lunch on after Bible study. God, look, I want you to hear what I went to. I picked up this book, Grandparenting Matters. It's a 6-lesson Bible study on grandparenting. And I've been looking through it, and I'm just going to see if there is any interest. I've already had a couple of people say, yes, I'll do that. There's no homework involved. It's just we get together, there is a video, and it's this man, Jerry Fowler, that I thought was so foundational in this conference last weekend. He's put the biblical stuff in here. He's put good discussion questions in there. So I don't know if this will take or not. I bought one. I'm going to read through it. And if anybody's interested, just let me know. We'll figure out a way to get together and think about this and talk about it. Now, there's not a person in here that probably isn't already sharing your faith. Or maybe you are struggling with, how do I do it? I mean, one lady came up to him after a speech not at our group and said, my grandchildren are already grown. But she said, you know what, I think I'm going to make coffee dates with my grandchildren. So she started making coffee dates with those adult grandchildren, and over a period of years, it made a difference. So that was the kind of encouragement I got, that it's never too late to feed your faith into that generation. So if you'd like to talk about it, and you may not have grandchildren, what if there are children in your neighborhood, neighbors, little children that you're in touch with? How can you share your faith with them creatively, inspiringly, excitedly? Children will catch the excitement before they'll catch the words. So how do you do that? And so I just throw all this out there to encourage and maybe challenge you, and let me know if you're interested.
Thank you so much. Are you going to stand? You want to share?
No, I don't.
Pardon?
I didn't know how you were more comfortable.
Oh, I'm fine. Whatever. Right. So I'm back. Thank you. And I want to thank you all for, first and foremost for supporting me and going. I never thought this would happen in my life, so it was really cool. And just to explain why I went and with whom I went, the organization that I work for, this is what we do. Most of our staff, most of our international trainers are retired pastors or seminary professors, and they travel, that's their job. They travel to different areas of the world to offer our curriculum in areas where seminary training is not available. And our curriculum is a 9-course curriculum that's delivered generally over 3 years. So we go to these locations 3 times a year for 3 years to deliver our curriculum. And when I hired on, I think you might remember over a year ago that I said my boss would like me to see what we do. So that was why I was encouraged to go on one of these trips. And now that I went, I have to say, I want to go back. It was wonderful. I've never been on a mission trip and this is a different kind of mission trip. It's not where we went into some, after a national disaster and helped rebuild or any of that. We were giving training to people who are pastors and leaders. And at this particular, our staff member who runs this particular site, the training, the 9-course delivery, it's a husband and wife team. So this is unusual across what we do, in that because the wife is also equipped as a teacher, leader, she herself was involved in women's ministry in the States, there's actually a separate group for the women. So the women would include wives of the pastors who are going through the training, also include ladies who are leading women's Bible studies or women's ministries and also children's ministries. So it was fun. We would get together every morning as a big plenary group. There were 2 groups of men, 2 classrooms of men teachers, and then there was the ladies. And so we would all get together in the morning and after the end of the day. And we would have a little bit of worship and, fellowship, and then we'd split up. So then when the ladies got into our room, like mid-morning when you're starting to droop, right? Some of the ladies who were in charge of children's ministries would lead us in, head and shoulders, knees and toes, and active kind of songs. So it was kind of fun. These ladies were amazing, and my heart is there with them. I had asked for prayer about the translators, and we had 2 translators for the ladies group. One of them, we were delivering course 3, so one of the translators had already delivered translation services during course 1 and 2, and now again 3. But by coming into course 3, our team lead said, Edna, you need help. You need some support. So Rachel was a younger woman who's very proficient in English. So our translation team was Edna and Rachel. And Edna was just overflowing, bubbling with joy. she said, I love doing the translations for you because it makes me think even more deeply about the information. And she just was being blessed out of her socks. And I mean, it was just contagious. So it just went so well. And so what were we learning? We were learning about how to study and then teach or present narrative and law. So we were mostly in Genesis and Exodus. And we taught certain skills like observe the text. And the three main questions that I think are, I mean, I've only been exposed to this one course, but I think it kind of goes throughout the 9-course curriculum, is what is the author's main point? How does this, whatever I'm studying, this passage fit in the larger book of the Bible, and how does that fit in the larger Bible story? And course 2, which I didn't get to participate in and haven't studied, but I got kind of remnants of it. Course 2 studies our depiction of the whole story of the Bible, which is God's plan to redeem humankind back into relationship with Him. And so everything points back to what is this passage saying, what is this book about, and how does this fit there, and then how does it fit in God's plan of redeeming humanity. So I learned and grew from the curriculum that I was presenting. One of the lesson that I taught was the very beginning of the law. So it was kind of an overview of Exodus and up to the 10 Commandments, and then what are we supposed to do with those 10 Commandments as New Testament believers. And so the curriculum walked us through understanding that when we read the law, we should be looking for God's character behind the law. And then how do we apply it? One thing I've never done before, never been exposed to before, is we looked at a law. We picked one law in the curriculum, one law out of Exodus, and traced through every time that law was referenced out of the New Testament. It was kind of, I've never done that before. So this was a law about if you encounter your neighbor's ox and it had fallen, you should help, you know? And then when it's brought up in the New Testament, it becomes more clear that God's heart behind that law is that, number one, we should love everyone, love all of His creation, even our enemies and even animals, and be kind to each other. I mean, and then we talked about how God Himself demonstrated love for His enemies throughout the Bible. So it was amazing to be immersed in these lessons. As for the travel, it was long, but our trip lead explained that his perspective was to stretch it out a little bit so that the recovery is not so bad. So the flight from Houston to LAX was 3.5 hours, and then I had a little bit of a layover. From LAX to Manila was 15.5 hours, and then from Manila to Puerto Princesa, which is on the Palawan island, was another 1.5 hours. And then once we got to Puerto Princesa, it was a 5-hour drive to Rizal, where we were hosting our training. So So he spread that out over 2 days, and then on the way back, it was really weird to depart from Manila at 8 in the morning and arrive in LA, 15-hour flight, right? Arrive in LA at 11 in the morning. So that was kind of weird. But for the most part, I handled it well. I mean, my team leads were watching because, of course, they've been doing a lot of this travel, and they were watching all of us, and they're like, "You're doing really good." Like they kept checking in on me, and I was fine. So where we stayed in Rizal we stayed at a resort in Rizal, but it's nothing like the resorts here. And they were proud to host us. There were 7 of us total, 1 married couple, so there were 6 rooms that we occupied, and 4 of those rooms were brand new. They were so proud that we had new rooms to stay in. And that they had installed in our 6 rooms, because they knew the team lead from the 2 previous trips. They had installed hot water in the shower. I was very grateful for that. But each room, so we had a little like window air conditioner, and then this hot water thing in the shower that was kind of like think of a coffee pot, your drip coffee pot, where you put the water in and it pressure heats really fast. And so the first morning of classes, Monday morning, so the 4 of us are all in one building, right? We've all got our air conditioners on, and 2 of us, it just so happens, got in the shower at the same time and blew the breaker. So we had to learn that you turn off the air conditioner before you go take a shower. And what we learned from our host, because training leaders, when we go out to a site, when we decide to take on a site to do training there, we have a host in country who works out all the logistics for us, where we're going to stay, where the meeting place is, food, and all of that. And this guy was amazing, and I can tell he is a pastor, and I was able to go to his church on Sunday morning. I forgot why I brought him up, but anyway, he has a vision. They're establishing basically a network of pastors so that they can exchange ideas and support each other and bring in training. And part of training leaders' curriculum and mission is that not just that we're bringing in training and that we would keep coming back. No, we want to bring in training and equip you then in country, in your own language, to carry that training forward to others. I forgot why I brought that up. But anyway, he was great. He was amazing, and he was our transportation to and from Puerto Princesa to Rizal, and then to the training site every day. And one morning, it was after the storms had gone through, he wasn't showing up. In the morning, we're like watching the clock, and he's not here, and he's not here. His van had gotten stuck in the mud, and he was driving his wife to work on the way to pick us up, so they had to push the van out of the mud. The roads are, yeah, they're just packed dirt, most of it. They do have some concrete roads, but most of it is packed dirt, and with the amount of rain that we had, it was messy. Where was I going? What else do you want to know? We were right on the coast of the South China Sea. So it was nice, even though the temperature was hot, we always had a nice breeze coming through because we were right there on the sea. Part of what I caught myself a couple times, like I said, in the morning we would come together for this plenary, a little bit of worship time. All of their worship they did by video, rather than having like we do a worship team up front leading. They just used video, and it was all in English. So it was amazing. It was amazing at the church service, and then in our plenary services, we'd be singing, and I'd forget where I was. I'd forget that I was in a country halfway around the world, because they love Jesus just like we do, and they struggle in their walks the same way we do, and they worship the same way we do. And it was amazing to realize how big the body of Christ is. And so that's one of the things I took away. The storms, the Philippines is a group of islands. Palawan is, I looked it up this morning on Wikipedia. It's the 5th largest of the islands. It is also the least developed. The population on the island as a whole is just barely over 1 million people. But it is beautiful. The buildings, like the church that I went to that Sunday morning, basically it had a back and a roof, and it was open air the rest of it. So it was so cool to worship the Lord and look out over jungle. It was amazing. And I've been asked several times, some of the trainees that came were local, and some of them did stay at the venue where the training was off. So some of them had traveled and stayed there all week. Food was amazing. I mean, this is a undeveloped area and a more poor area, so it wasn't like extravagant, gourmet food, but we had fish almost every day. The fish was grilled whole with the head and the tail, and just grilled on the grill and presented on the table just that way. So that was an interesting thing. We had mangoes almost every meal. The Filipino bananas are the squat, short little bananas, and they are so sweet. They were amazing, but you have to, they served rice with everything. Every meal was rice. But we had a few, they have a special kind of like an egg roll that they make that was very specific to the Philippines, and it was really good. You're shaking your head.
I have several Filipino friends, but also, yes, I love those. Lumpia?
Yes.
Yes. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then there was a pastry, it was called puta, which is made out of moringa flour, and it was kind of like a sponge cake that was just barely sweet, and they made it it looked like a dinner roll, but and then sometimes they put kind of a really solid custard on the top that was banana based, so that was a treat. And then coconuts, the big green coconuts where you slice the top off and stick a straw in, we were treated to that several times. And at the resort, they had a walkway that basically was like a trellis type top. And there was some vine with fruit hanging down, and so we were curious, what was that fruit? It was kind of orangish and spiky, and so one morning the cook at the resort cut some open and gave them to us. And there's really no like meat inside. inside, there's huge black seeds, and you basically put the seed in your mouth and sucked off the coating around it. But apparently we have great health benefits. But nobody bothers with them. I don't know. What else? Ask me questions.
A couple questions. Are you going to have the opportunity to do this again?
I think I can. I think my employer would encourage it as much as I could work it into my workload. I came back and
Would you also go to different places, or would you?
I could go to different sites, yeah. And considering that, because now there is a fire ignited, it's like, would I want to go someplace else, or I established relationships with these ladies? Would I want to go, because we still have at least 6 more trips to this site. So I don't know where I would go.
And related to that, if you're able to do that, then how often or frequently will you be able to do that? I don't know what the frequency of these trips are.
Well, these trips are, I mean, there are trips. There are probably company-wide, we do about 6 trips every month. You know, because we have multiple sites and we're going at least to each site at least 3 times a year. So, yeah, my guys are always traveling. I don't know how they do it.
And then one last question.
Yeah.
How many potential new leaders did they reach out to? Like, you had your team of 7 people or whatever, but how many people were able to get in the room with those leaders to learn?
With the trainers that are trainees, the women's group, who was there fluctuated, but we had 12 women every day. And then the men, I want to say there were probably 30. Yeah. And some of them, like one of the ladies said, I mean, a lot of these pastors that we were training are actually planting a church. And one of the ladies in my group she was a pastor's wife, and they're struggling to get their church up and running. And so she was sharing with me their monthly donation, contributions from the body were 25 pesos, which is nothing. I mean, 1,000 pesos is $20. So, yeah, some of them are really struggling. Almost all of them are bivocational because the church can't support it.
Philippines, of course, a group of islands. Is there one governing body? Each island has its own governor, or how does that? Who's in charge? Each island?
That part I don't know, but I suspect that each island is kind of like a state in the United States, and then there are townships. Like the Rizal Township is trying to grow and become more more modern. Yeah, they're trying to develop infrastructure. So we did go to the public marketplace because they don't have grocery stores. There's just a place where there's one hut after another, and the structures, the building structures are, it looks like the wind could blow them down very easily. Everything is corrugated metal roofs. And then you might have sides and you might not. And the fronts are all open. But the markets, like you have a market that specializes in something, and then you'll have an open air barber, and then you'll have another market that's a little larger, and everything, I mean, they have shelves around the walls and then pallets in the middle with big boxes and just packages. And they don't have a lot of refrigeration and like washer and dryer at the resort. There was this dinky little old washing machine, and then a line where there were clothes hanging. There was no dryer. which is it was hard for me to get my head wrapped around because it's so humid. It's like, how does anything ever dry? I mean, we had trouble drying our towels in our rooms with the air conditioner on. But yeah, so the refrigeration doesn't really exist. So people go to the market pretty much every day, you know. And like one day, because our trip leader, like I said, he's very invested in the Philippines. I guess he has a brother that lives on one of the other islands. And so one day we were waiting for our van in the morning, and a local woman came and she had a chicken and she needed to sell her chicken. And so he went ahead and bought it because he wanted to, you know, as a more privileged person coming into an undeveloped area, you don't necessarily want to give handouts. That's not helpful. It doesn't build their sense of self-sufficiency. But we can support, you know, so that was his idea. I'm going to support her by buying this chicken. And then he delivered it to the kitchen, and the guy was like, yeah.
Was the chicken live?
Pardon?
Was the chicken live?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, it was live. And that was another thing for us, you know, Americans to adjust to, is when they serve a dish, you know, when they cook a chicken, they just chop it into pieces, and you get bone and everything. And there's not a piece that you can recognize.
So we've said the Philippines is a group of islands, and you were on Palawan.
Yeah.
Recently I've become aware of Wycliffe being involved in an unreached, not an unreached, but a people group in the Philippines that didn't have a Bible in their language.
Right.
So, you know, on Palawan, all of the people you were dealing with did have scripture in their language?
They had, Tagalog is the language that is kind of the national language, but there are many dialects and many variations of Tagalog. So they had Tagalog Bibles, but not necessarily specific to their region.
If they were able to understand it, I mean, I don't know the languages, but.
Yeah, they were able to read it, and, you know, because we encouraged them to read out of their Bibles, so I didn't understand anything they were saying,
Right.
but they were passionate about reading
Right.
the Word. Yeah.
This situation I'm aware of, I mean, they just got the book of Luke translated and printed and
Okay.
distributed
Well,
in the language
In
of
their
that
language.
group. And I think it's maybe further east and south
Okay,
on
yeah,
that area.
yeah,
So,
on a smaller island.
yeah, probably.
Yeah. I don't know. And the typhoon that came through, thank you for praying for us, but it was coming from the east, and Palawan is kind of on the west, on the south side. So the storm actually hit another island east of us, and then it came across that island and it hit the northern tip of Palawan. But it didn't. We just got rain. I mean, but bad rain, like when we get the dirty side of a hurricane here. It was heavy rains. But, yeah.
Aside from the weather, did you feel safe there?
I did. I mean, we were sequestered on this resort and at the training venue, so I didn't go explore a lot.
Or even the market, you felt safe?
Yeah. I mean, I've been pickpocketing and all of that is anywhere you go. And I did, before I went, I read, and kidnappings are frequent, and but when they say that online, it's, you know, it's global for the area. It's not just the town that you're in, so I wasn't concerned about that. And the pastor, our on-site leader was, he had a daughter that was still in high school, and, you know, she I don't know, I just felt, yeah, I felt safe. We were in a family type environment.
Ask more questions.
Brad doesn't want to teach.
I don't mind, but we're just so close on time that,
I didn't realize that.
you know, I don't really have time to
Yeah,
get
to
anything
do anything.
started or developed, so.
Okay.
Any
That's one
unique,
Stomach adjust to the food? Did you have any?
It did. I didn't have trouble until I got home. And I was kind of surprised because even the trouble that I normally have, I didn't have while I was there. When I got home, my system is adjusting, but yeah. And some of my team were real picky about what they ate. I wasn't. I was game to try everything.
any unique plants or animals that you experienced?
Not like wildlife, but what I didn't know, and apparently this is not uncommon for areas like this, there were dogs everywhere. And it wasn't like you owned the dog. The dogs were just wild. There were like they had a home, you know, we had like 3 or 4 dogs around the resort that consistently were around the resort, but it was obvious that there was no veterinary care or anything like that, and they were living off the land, you know.
I'd be more worried if there weren't any dogs.
Okay, yeah. True. True. Robert, you have a question?
All the videos I've seen them over there, were there motorcycles like ants?
Oh, the
Where's the
motorcycles.
gas stations?
Yes. Motorcycles are everywhere. That's what most people can afford. And then the next step up from motorcycles is a motorcycle with a side cart. But they wrap the whole ensemble in vehicle parts. So it's got a grill and a front end, and it's got a back end, and it's got sides, and it has a roof. But it is just a motorcycle with, you know, some kind of a steel bench or something. And where you and I would look at it and say, oh, maybe 3 people safely, right? No, they pile 6, 7, 8 people into this thing. And there are some vehicles, like we were driving in a van, and there were some pickup trucks, and you would see a pickup truck, even a short bed pickup truck, with just probably 8 people standing up in the bed of the truck, traveling down the road. And they have rules of the road. I mean, they have priority. So the vehicles, the 4-wheel vehicles, have priority, and then these sidecars, and then it is kind of weird. And yeah, it was traffic in and out and everywhere.
Kind of biggest vehicle rules.
Pardon?
Biggest vehicle rules.
Yes. Yeah. And their road construction, so they were working on this one section of road, and so they diverted traffic, right? So where we have anyway, it was just dirt that they had packed down real well, the detour, and it wasn't well guarded on the sides. It was kind of interesting. Yeah. And toileting is different. Yeah, they don't have, some of the toilets don't even have a mechanism for flushing. So every bathroom has a spigot on the wall with a bucket, with a smaller bucket, so that you could slush to flush your stuff down. And paper products were very sparsely provided. So when they did provide napkins to go with your meal, the napkin was this big. And each of our rooms had a sack of, facial tissue like Kleenex or whatever, but those were only this big too. And you had to carry, us Americans had to carry toilet paper in our pockets because sometimes you go use the restroom, there's no paper products. Everything had, every place had like a bidet sprayer. So, yeah, it was interesting. And the bathroom in our rooms, like there's no divider for the shower. It's just one room that's tiled with the sprayer right next to the toilet, right next to the sink. And yeah, so that was, I'm easygoing, so that wasn't a big deal, but it's different for sure.
Tell them the name you were accorded and why.
What?
When they asked how old you were?
Oh. So when I went to church that Sunday morning, the pastor wanted to introduce us. There were 2 of us from our team that went to his church. And so he came over and, wanted to know my name for sure so he could write it down. And he asked me how old I was. And at first, his first reaction was he couldn't believe how old I was. And then the second, he said, is it okay if I call you Auntie? Because Auntie is for females, it's a name of, what do you say?
When the oldest
Respect.
Respect.
Yeah, it's a way of respecting an elder woman. So I was introduced as Auntie Sharon. And it was interesting too, and I was told about it, and then I didn't recall it until at the end of our trip I witnessed it. A young person coming into the room or into a group and saying hello, greeting, would go to the older person and offer their hand. And the older person would then, wait a minute, how did that go? The older person touches the younger person's forehead by way of blessing. So the younger person comes and kind of says, will you bless me? And the older person blesses. So that was interesting.
Did you bless anybody?
Pardon?
Did you bless anybody?
I didn't, because I didn't catch on to it until I actually saw it. They tried to explain it with words, but no picture. No picture, no getting. Well,
is there anyone you'd like us to be praying for in particular, like the lady, wife of the pastor? Or did you come back with a prayer list?
There's one woman, because we were encouraged while we were presenting to share a little bit of our testimony, or make ourselves more human, I guess, and psychologically. And so when I was teaching, we came across the verse in Exodus where that said God basically was telling us that God hears us and sees us. And so I was kind of asking, anyway, I said that was one verse that really stuck out to me because I've been married, and I grew up in an abusive home. I was married, and that was bad. And then I did a lot of work and got married again, and that was even worse. And that's kind of how I said it. And several of the ladies were like, yes, And one of them in particular is still in a marriage where they really don't even talk to each other. And so her heart is really hurting. And because, I shouldn't say because, but just she feels outcasted even from her sisters in Christ. And so one thing that she kept mentioning throughout the week is, I need this. I need to get together with the body. So I think she has carried shame over her situation, is kind of isolated and become very self-sufficient. She's a businesswoman, she's very smart, but she's hurting. And so her name is Rose. So if you pray for Rose, and then also pray for these husband and wife teams that have been called to pastor a church, but they're really struggling, and it's bivocational. So they've got to do their regular job and support their family, but they're also trying to pour themselves into building a body of believers together and having a rough time. A couple of them were very discouraged about that.
What are their vocations or what are their regular jobs?
You know, I didn't really discover that. I can tell you about the leader, the site leader in country. He worked for the government, and his wife also worked for the government. But this one woman in particular that shared, they're in a tribal area. They were one of the ones that came and stayed there. They're just so I didn't ask. We didn't spend a lot of time talking about the husbands. But thank you again for giving me this opportunity. I mean, I was going because my employer wanted me to, and I was going to pay for it myself, but I've been blown away when people insisted that I open up the opportunity for others to support me, and it's just been amazing, especially coming from the background that I've had. It's been amazing to be supported by this family, and I just really appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing.
Very good. Sharon, thank you for sharing. Why don't we pray? I'll pray. God, thank you for our church family. Thank you for how you have drawn us together and built us into a group that loves each other and supports each other and who are bound by the word of Christ and your word. And as we go through life and struggle, we have each other to pray for one another, to lift each other up. Thank you for Sharon. Thank you for her willingness to be a part of this team that went. Thank you that you supplies the funds for her to go. Thank you for the impact that she had while she was there. I do want to lift up Rose to you, Father, in this very difficult marriage. Just pray for her connection with the body of believers there, that they would not reject her and shun her, that they would accept her in for who she is. Pray for these other team, husband-wife teams that are struggling financially, or that they would continue to be faithful and that you would supply the resources. And just thank you for understanding that we had through Sharon's report this morning of what you're doing halfway around the world. Lord, we do commit this morning to you. We thank you for our time together. Thank you that you have worked in our lives and encouraged us, and pray that we would continue to be sensitive to your leading and your calling, that we might walk worthy of your calling, that we might walk in strong faith, and that because of that we might impact others. I pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.